Courts in general should follow their past precedents.
It is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court.
It has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years.
You agree with Justice Scalia's view that Roe was wrongly decided?
Senator, I completely understand why you are asking the question, but again, I can't pre-commit or say, yes, I'm going in with some agenda, because I'm not. I don't have any agenda. I have no agenda to try to overrule Casey. I have an agenda to stick to the rule of law and decide cases as they come.
It's the principle that courts in general should follow their past precedents. And it's important for a variety of reasons. It's important because it limits the power of the judiciary. It's important because it protects reliance interests, and it's important because it reflects the view that courts should respect the judgments and the wisdom that are embodied in prior judicial decisions.
Follow precedent, not politics. That's what Justice and Catholic Sonia Sotomayor said back in December about the impending question as to whether the Supreme Court would overturn Roe versus Wade. Sotomayor asked, will this institution survive the stench that this creates in the public perception that the Constitution and its reading are just political acts? I don't see how it's possible. It is not the Supreme Court's job to make moral judgments. Their job is to uphold the legality and precedential nature of the laws made in our country. But that sacred right is in total jeopardy now that it seems the reversal of Roe will happen. So I cover a lot of religious news on Rebel HQ, and it's no secret if you've seen my coverage that although I'm not a practicing Catholic, I'm sympathetic to Pope Francis's vision of the church. Just wanted to lay that out a little more clearly before we dive deeper into this question of religion and abortion. As many people are rightfully noting that the current makeup of the Supreme Court is 67% Catholic, while the US population is only 22% Catholic. We often assume that the ban on abortion in terms of a religious angle is a law from the biblical times, but this is a total myth. The Vatican's total ban on abortion was not codified until 1917, and even today, although the Vatican doesn't condone abortion, it has said definitively that it does not know when a developing life becomes a person. Catholics for Choice notes that, quote, Catholic teachings on abortion have changed over time, indicating that true Catholicism is based on a deep respect for each individual conscience when making moral decisions. And abortion is a matter to be decided by one's individual conscience. So if there isn't a biblical stance on abortion, why did all of this politicizing happen, and how? Politico has a fascinating story out that notes that upon the immediate initial ruling in Roe versus Wade, there actually wasn't a strong amount of initial backlash because it wasn't yet seen as an evangelical or Catholic or Christian rallying cry, but it was in fact completely built up by evangelical leaders like Jerry Falwell for one very specific reason. The report says that, quote, it wasn't until 1979 that evangelical leaders, at the behest of conservative activist Paul Weyrich, seized on abortion not for moral reasons, but as a rallying cry to deny President Jimmy Carter a second term. Why? Because the anti-abortion crusade was more palatable than the religious right's real motive, protecting segregated schools. That's right. The evangelicalizing of abortion as a political issue was the brainchild of people in the near 1980s like Falwell and Weyrich, who actually opposed school integration, but, quote, were savvy enough to recognize that organizing grassroots evangelicals to defend racial discrimination would be a challenge. They needed a different issue if they wanted to mobilize evangelical voters on a large scale. So yeah, basically, these leaders wanted to make their religious bloc extremely politically powerful, but they knew they needed to organize around an issue that was easy to take the moral high ground on if you do enough spinning. Weyrich said famously that, quote, if the moral majority acts, results could well exceed our wildest dreams. Among other tactics, the team literally went around the country screening a series of films entitled Whatever Happened to the Human Race, which depicts abortion in graphic detail and related it directly to being anti-Christian, largely the first time this connection was made. This is not an ancient debate, as the right would have us believe. It's not even as old as Roe versus Wade itself, signaling that we live in a more divisive time on abortion now than when it was actually being fought in the courts the first time. Hopefully this perspective is helpful in framing how loose and tenuous the religious argument against abortion abortion really is. I highly recommend reading the whole Politico article and seeing for yourself how intentionally abortion was used as a more palatable issue to gain moral control than racial segregation. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on all platforms at Caro Johnson 917.